Welcome to the C3 Podcast, Conferences, Conventions, and Continuing Education, presented by Engineerica Systems, a resource for our current clients and prospective clients with industry news, event expertise, and innovative technology. And we are your hosts. I'm Janelle Connor, an educational events planner, Asher Lazo, conference tracker expert.
Hello.
As well as Rachel Gray, event technology consultant.
Hi, how are you?
Today we're discussing virtual streaming for events and online CE and CEU tracking. We have a special guest joining us, Christine Mack, an association planner and co-organizer of Meetings Mean Community, a Facebook group to support conference organizers as we traverse the unknown future of events. And then we'll hear the latest industry news and upcoming virtual events you won't want to miss. All right, let's get down to some of our company news and some new features, I believe, in our conference tracker software.
So Asher, you've really been an integral part of the team, especially during these times when we've been trying to navigate and see how event technology can really help the conference organizer. How's that been going?
It's been very interesting. We here at Conference Tracker have been supporting events and conferences for a long time with attendance tracking and certificate generation and CE tracking. But now with this transition into virtual events, we've been updating Conference Tracker to enable our new landscape of virtual conferences. So one of the things we're most excited about is our online session implementation. We have so many new features to implement any sort of online session, whether it's a pre-recorded video or a live stream or a Zoom meeting. A Conference Tracker can support all of those online platforms and give you more tools to streamline attendance tracking and certificate generation without really having to jump around all these other systems. I mean, whenever I am using something on a computer, I don't like to bounce around different programs. I like everything to be kind of centralized in an all-in-one solution. And that's what we're trying to provide with Conference Tracker.
I was going to say that's really been a great asset to a lot of our clients, seeming that we can now integrate with any platform, right?
Yeah, we have had Zoom. Vimeo is a really popular one. YouTube is popular, Zoom as well, GoToWebinar. There's so many online platforms out there right now. And for the most part, we can integrate with any of them.
Asher, what are some of the pros or cons that people should look for when they're choosing a virtual streaming software?
It all depends on how you want to handle the online sessions, because as we know, there are plenty of ways to do this. We do recommend doing a pre-recorded session. That's probably the best way to get a final product where you can edit it and make sure it's presentable. With that being said, pre-recorded sessions would go great on a service like either YouTube or Vimeo, which offer free solutions for your uploads. We also have live streaming options. Some people like the back and forth interaction between presenter and audience. So services like Zoom and GoToWebinar are great. YouTube, little known fact, also has a live streaming aspect to it. And we here at Conference Tracker are very familiar with all of these platforms and can help you to get your conference exactly how you want it online.
So a question I've been getting a lot really is, why not just use GoToWebinar, or why not just use YouTube or some type of streaming or conferencing platform? And my response has always been, Conference Tracker is a one-stop solution that not only is a roadmap for event planners during this time of virtual events. We've got marketing, we've got registration, we've got attendance tracking, but also the fact that Engineerica for 25 years has been connecting attendance tracking to credit hours. GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting and Zoom and all these places, they track attendance, but they don't track it with the intention of tracking credit hours. That's where we're different. Think about the conference organizers. They on the back end have to take this Excel spreadsheet. They have to then connect that piece. Then they have to award each person.
I did that.
So that's what we're, no. So that's where they're like literally saving so much time. That is a really, really big advantage of using Conference Tracker, really not having to take those attendance logs, then sort through those attendance logs, then, attach credit hours to that. That is not even necessary. And we even have the ability to get automatic certificates after that. So the conference organizer really, really has so much work eliminated. That's really a game changer.
Yeah, exactly. With our online session tracking, since we are implementing all these online platforms within Conference Tracker, the system itself is constantly monitoring attendance. So when the user signs in and signs out from a session, we are able to track that. With that, Conference Tracker then assigns credits into each of those sessions and each of those attendees. So depending on how long those people were watching that session for, they will be getting credits, and then that can then be turned into a certificate generation or CEU report.
And that's all happening automatically, like all in the back end.
Yeah, and while it is automatic, you also have the ability to go in and make sure that everything is good to go. Any edits that need to be changed or anything that needs to be added or deleted, you can go and do that as well without the need of contacting anyone or anything. You have full control over your conference.
Now, I know certain conferences who are offering CE credits and CEU credits, they have some specific requirements in some cases, like you have to have a certain number of minutes in session or a percentage. And I believe we can do all of that. Also, I think you can even require that the attendees take a survey or an assessment, so to speak, of the session before they can get their credits.
Yeah, that's correct. We can set each session to have a different attendance requirement. For example, it can be either a percentage of that session. So if it's a 50-minute or 100-minute session, 50% or 75% time in that session was what will activate your credits. Or if it's a session that you're offering for a couple of days, make sure that everyone can get to it. You can just set amount of time watched per minutes. And once that gets hit, then you will be awarded those credits as an attendee, and then that will work into the certificate generation and all of that.
Well, that's great. So we have our special guest, Christine Mack. So we'll go to that interview next. Thank you, Christine, for joining us. We're so excited to have you. And
thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we understand you're an association planner in the Los Angeles area. And we also were really excited to meet you through the Meetings Mean Community Facebook group that you created. So we wanted to have you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, and we'll start there.
Okay, thanks for having me. Sorry for interrupting you before. It's true, I'm an association planner based in Los Angeles, relatively new full-time to the meetings industry in the last couple of years. I was a part-time basis before, and also I was in education. But when the virus hit and we saw what was happening with the industry, I joined forces with an industry colleague of mine, and we thought we need something to support the community because of the massive amount of changes that everybody is facing on a personal and professional level. It's kind of unprecedented to watch your livelihood and the prospects of livelihood change before your eyes.
Definitely. We've been thrown for a loop here.
Yes, for sure. And I think everybody's feeling it, and everybody's feeling it in different ways. So there are some of us, I'm fortunate to be employed right now, but realize that could change at any moment. And I'm also one of the lucky ones. Not everybody is so lucky right now. So it's hard watching people that lose their jobs, and it seems like more and more are happening each week.
Yes, it's really unfortunate.
So, Christine, on a positive note, I have a question for you. What's your favorite part of what you're doing currently?
Well, right now, currently, it's actually researching how to pivot to digital events. That's a new space for me. So it's been really exciting to look at aspects I didn't even realize. So you hear about digital events, and we've all been involved in them, but from a live event producer perspective, I just assumed you could just, tweak it a little and plop it into a webinar. And it's fascinating to me each day as I'm learning more and more about the ins and outs of what's required.
Specifically, are you finding anything to be a big challenge with the pivot to virtual events?
Yes. And I think the biggest challenge that I'm going to face, so I was to give a presentation last month in person. And because of everything going on, I was unable to travel, and I had to do it virtually. And I've been reading everything about how to condense for speakers when you're presenting, how to condense it to 3 main points, the different ways to deliver your presentation and how to change your PowerPoint or the slideshow and vary it to engage the audience. And it was one thing to read about it. It was another to actually put it into practice myself. And what I thought would take me, a couple of tries and then I'd be good to go. It ended up taking me all weekend, and I still wasn't entirely thrilled with the end product. So having that firsthand perspective to put myself into what it's going to be like to be a presenter on a digital event, it's really making me dig deeper about how can we keep the audience engaged, but also how can we support presenters through that process.
Yeah, I think we've had a very similar experience here at Engineerica, and with our conference tracker product, we've been able to support live events. And now that everyone's moving digitally, we've had to quickly make a few adjustments, learn how to stream video as well as provide, pre-recorded video, rethink how to engage the audience in new ways. And we also started doing some webinar series ourselves. And I think, Rachel, you can speak to how you've had to do similarly and put yourself out there digitally and try to engage your audience.
Yeah, so I've presented in webinars, and that is, I've noticed that I have to use two devices, not only one, because that's like a big tip for me, literally using my cell phone as a guide while I'm presenting, because you have the big presentation on the screen, but you still want to interact with the audience. So that's something I've been doing. And then I've gotten that question from some conference organizers as well. So it's actually using both devices has been helpful for me. So, I think it's going to take definitely a learning curve and lots of training to get presenters on board, because we're so used to kind of looking out into the audience, making eye contact, engaging that way. Or even if it might be taking questions, does anybody have a question, actually asking that and people responding to you? So it's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to get used to for sure.
Yeah, and that's a good takeaway that I'm going to tuck in the back of my mind, to have your cell phone out as well as a second device. Certainly for me, the hardest part was realizing that people were going to be watching this, but it just felt flat. There was no energy to draw on, and it was a very interesting experience.
I actually used my cell phone for not only notes, kind of like my broad outline with notes, and then also I had it to kind of engage with the audience. So even if it's like polls, so that I can still have that gauge of what's everybody doing right now. How are they thinking? It basically just asks, a question. What are you doing during COVID-19? I'm playing my cello. What are you doing? So just kind of like a response, is anyone out there? Please tell me you're listening to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have to think of new strategies and methods for engaging the audience now that we're not face to face and can't see what they're doing, if they're paying attention or if they're checking their email. So there's definitely some new thinking we have to do and some innovative thinking we have to do to put together more engaging presentations. And like you said, condense it down to the main points.
But concise. I think as especially, as presenters, we're kind of used to keeping on point, but I know for myself personally, it's especially if you're engaged and excited about a topic, it's really hard to take 40 minutes and say, okay, what are the 3 points and how am I going to say that in the most direct way? Feels like we're kind of changing the way we communicate a little bit when we move to this platform.
Yes.
Right. And then also getting sponsors involved in virtual events. How have you found that to be on your end?
I haven't had to deal with it yet. I believe it will be coming up in the very near future, but I do handle the sponsorship component, which is forcing me to really look at what do sponsors want? What are their ultimate goals, which are very different from attendee goals? And when you have that space, that physical presence, you can cater to everybody in different ways. But when I'm looking at digital events, you have kind of a smaller arena to make sure that everybody's needs are being met. That's one of the interesting things I'm looking at, how to make sure that sponsors are satisfied while still keeping the goal on what the attendee wants and keeping everybody engaged. It's an interesting puzzle to fit together.
Yes, it's been a fun thing for us to think through as a team as well and come up with the different ways to engage the attendees in a way that the exhibitors and sponsors would appreciate and would benefit from, to keep that value high and there for them so that they will continue to sponsor these events even though they are virtual.
Right.
I mean, what we've found is mostly exposure and just having that component of communication. Going to trade shows personally, that's what we get out of it. We want leads, point blank, period. That's what we want. That's why we go there. So being able to still provide that, I think with our team, we've actually found that essentially you can get more leads by going completely virtual, because I don't only have to have that trade show model where I'm sitting in a booth waiting for attendees to come up to me. I can now broadcast to every single attendee and they can see it. You know what I mean? So you usually in a trade show model, you're waiting for somebody to walk past that booth. Hi, I'm Rachel. This is Conference Tracker or whatever. But now I can actually send out my advertisement, whatever that is, to everybody. So as a sponsor myself, I actually see that as a pro and not a con. Do you know what I mean? To even engaging in virtual events. So that's just something I found while exploring this new virtual world, really.
I was just going to say the other thing that I like as I am researching more is that when you are at a live event, it's very difficult to gauge and track those metrics. And in that digital platform, I'm noticing more and more that it's going to be very much, here's your level of engagement, here's the number of click-throughs you had, and it's going to be easy to track that and hand it to the sponsors and say, here you go.
Exactly.
So now I talk to a lot of conference organizers who have their meetings in September, October, November. And we were just talking before we even started recording on essentially some states are starting the phase 1 opening up process. For instance, Orlando has just announced last Monday, we're going to open up. But, we have several phases to go before we even think about getting together in a confined space with over 100 people. So events are still to be determined. What I'm thinking about is for those conference organizers that have a meeting, say in 3 to 6 months, do you think that those will still be virtual, or will we go to a hybrid model?
So the longer that this virus goes on, I think 3 to 6 months, I think we're still going to be looking at virtual. And I don't think it's going to have anything to do necessarily with whether or not states are open for business. I think we have a couple of factors at play. One is we don't have a treatment. We don't have a vaccine. It's still going to be something that we're all dealing with. And when you think about the optics of people coming to a conference, I mean, one of the main goals is to network and meet with one another and collaborate. And I'm not entirely sure how that's going to look when you have to stay 6 feet apart and everybody is wearing PPE and you have that level of concern for, did this person pick something up on an airplane? Or is it safe to touch this food? Or even what is the food going to look like? I'm hearing a lot of talk about no more buffet lines. Everything has to go to, pre-packaged, single serve, disposable utensils, or at least individually packaged utensils. There are so many considerations to look at. The other side of that as well is the psychological impact. And I think it's going to be a matter of each attendee is going to weigh, is this worth it to me? Right now, we're hearing about Zoom fatigue, and I think we're all kind of video conferenced out. At the same time, when you think about it, are you willing to put your own life at risk or those around you just to go and get that face-to-face contact that could be done virtually? So I think that for the next 3 to 6 months, I think we're going to be still virtual. Maybe next year we're going to see it start to become more hybrid, but I can't see us going back to complete, international global conference face-to-face until we have a widespread and widely available vaccine.
Yeah, Christine, as you were describing that, I feel just the imagery of what an event would look like is kind of like a science fiction dystopia where you can't do what you would want to do. You can't be part of the conversations you would want to be part of. You would feel separated rather than a part of and building a community at an event, which is something you definitely want. And we wouldn't want to hold an event where people are standoffish and don't want to talk to each other or can't communicate because they can't see each other really through these masks and things. So
right. And even the issues of the staff that are working events. We're hearing about, well, temperature checks might have to be performed, or people will have to take antibody tests, or, whatever to prove that they are healthy. Who's the person that stands at the door and works that registration desk and says, come here, let me just take your temperature before you can go in?
Yeah,
right. I mean, reg desks are always backed up. I can't even imagine how backed up it will be when we have to add on the extra elements of even tracking where people are so that we can perform contact tracing in the event that there is an outbreak. I think we're still all in that mindset of, oh yeah, we just need a couple months and things will go back to normal. And we keep hearing people saying that, oh no, it will not be normal again. But I don't know that we've all reached that shift. But when you start to think about it, it's like, oh, it really might not be normal again for quite some time.
Yeah. With that, do you think that, and you kind of indicated that you do, but do you think that meetings and events, the landscape is now definitively changed? Will there always be a virtual component?
I was thinking about this the other day, just as far as even my own future goes. And I think we need that human connection. I mean, we've proven it just with the amount that we're on Zoom all the time just to see people. I know even personally the other day, a friend that I normally would call, I was like, could we please do this over Zoom? I just want to see your face.
Oh.
So I think we've all shown as humans, we need that connection. But I think this is going to, in time, kind of make us really reprioritize our lives. Like we were talking just before we started recording this actual podcast about how we're enjoying working from home. I know even personally, I really enjoy working from home at this point, as far as it's creating a little bit of a different focus. So I think in time, people are going to be a little more selective. Like, what's the purpose of the event? If the purpose of the conference or the event is simply to gain education, do I have to take 3 or 4 days and go through a time change and travel and the expense when I could learn it, over a period of 6 hours over a couple of days online? But if the purpose is to collaborate and network and get together, I think it's still going to be held in person. But what I can almost see happening is, in time, a choice is made. So some events will be strictly virtual, and then others will be strictly physical or with a hybrid component, but kind of separating those purposes out a little bit.
I like that perspective. Definitely purpose-driven events.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say intention, but I like that even more. Purpose-driven events. That's well done. I like that.
You can steal it.
So prior to this, I work with a lot of conference organizers that are kind of adverse to the use of technology with their meetings, simply because of the attendee base. They are used to doing things a specific way. And so technology is kind of like, okay, we'll try it next year. We'll try it the year after. Do you think now with this new landscape, if the use of technology will now become more widely accepted due to even like virtual dependence now?
Yes and no. I think there still might be a little bit of possibly a generational divide, but I also think it might depend on what technology people are using. Because I know I've worked with some event apps, and I've been to some events where the apps are not user-friendly at all. So if that was my first experience with it, and I didn't have the background knowledge, so I'm just putting myself in the viewpoint of an attendee. If a lousy app was my first experience, I would be like, forget this, I'm not adopting anything. But if I had a really great first experience, I think I'd see the capabilities of what good technology can do, and I would definitely want to use more and start to rely on it more. Certainly from an environmental standpoint, I think we've been headed that way for years, and I think this is the push we needed to get us away from paper and into the technological realm for a lot more, even for agendas and schedules and bios and everything that you would normally see in print at a conference.
Definitely. Yep. We've seen actually several of our clients that have come to us from using another app previously have had similar concerns and hesitancy. So it's of concern that the technology be of high value and easy to use and friendly. And that's something we are really proponents of here at Engineerica as well.
Yeah, it's very important. I used one app once that was so fantastic. It was easy to use as an organizer, and it was easy for the attendees, and it really did make a difference. People relied on it as they went through the conference.
So you've talked about a meeting app. What are some of the aspects of a meeting app or the different technology tools that you need for a successful virtual meeting?
Oh boy, that's a big question. So I always try, and I think like every conference organizer, you put yourself in the position of the attendee and what's that end user experience. So as an end user, you want something that you don't have to do a lot of thinking. It's intuitive. Everything is well designed and easily laid out. So probably great drop-down menus.
Mm-hmm.
What's my agenda? What's coming up next? Where is it? Certainly for bigger conference or expo halls, you want a map. But if interactive maps are possible, that would be even better. Kind of, how you have Google Maps on the street.
Yes.
I was at one once and it was like, I can't find this room. I see it on this 2D image. I can't find the room. A Google map would have been really helpful at that point.
Yes.
So I think looking at what is it that the attendees want, certainly from an organizer standpoint, something that is easy to go in from the back end and edit, send out push notifications, make updates very quickly on the fly as needed. Those things are always great. But definitely as an attendee, you want something that is going to be there as a tool to help you in as straightforward and easy to read a manner as possible.
Yeah. Have you thought about the landscape of the association and credit tracking? How will that work in terms of virtual meetings?
I haven't. That's interesting because the association that I am with does not worry about that.
Okay.
But my previous one did. So that's actually not something that I've considered and probably can't speak to right now without putting a bit of thought into it. So I apologize.
Well, we've thought about it and we can help. So
okay, perfect. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Yes. So prior to the pandemic, we were servicing a lot of associations. We automated attendance tracking and credit tracking and certificates and attendance. And then we related that to a virtual event. So that's what we've been thinking about. And that's what we created, a tool where you can also communicate with other attendees. You can also engage, and you can also have the sponsors engaged and communicating with everybody. So it's been quite a project. That's where we're doing podcasts to really educate everybody on, what's needed. What do you guys want? What do you see that's happening, and how can we best serve you? I mean, that's really the purpose is really finding out how we can get better.
That key of being able to interact and find other attendees at an event, especially I would think digital, because at an event, you've got a good chance of running into them someplace. But digitally, to be able to connect and also request those one-on-one meetings or sponsors to be able to reach out, those are fantastic tools to have.
That's why we built some of those things into Conference Tracker.
Awesome.
We're really excited to work with people as they move forward in planning virtual events and hybrid events, because we think we've been able to, complete this pivot alongside them so we can help them have those tools that they need.
Fantastic.
Before we end the interview, I wanted to go back a little bit and talk a little more about your Facebook community, Meetings Mean Community. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for that group?
So it was a collaboration between me and Courtney Stanley, who is a keynote speaker and social change champion within the meetings industry. So when this first happened, personally, I'm actually trained as a hypnotist and an energy worker, and I really believe in the power of gratitude and collaboration and lifting one another up.
Wow.
And when it Yeah, when it first happened, when we first had the realization that, wow, we're all being sent home to work and events pretty much dried up overnight, I thought there's got to be some way that we can keep people moving forward together, supporting each other. I looked at everything from the financial side, that we were about to have a bunch of people in our profession that financially might be taking a hit, or their personal lives, they might have lost. When you consider even at, the letdown we all experience when an event is over,
Yes.
imagine that letdown when your career is put on pause. Like, there was so much that as collaborators and connectors that we're all inherently built to do, which is why we enter this profession. I was thinking there's got to be a way that we can come together and help each other through it. So I was talking to Courtney about it, and she actually was having similar ideas from a different perspective at the same time. So we said, you know what, let's join this together. And we created the Meetings Mean Community hashtag, which we're starting to see used a little bit more and take on, by different people on different social media platforms. And we thought, let's just kind of go with it and see, what do people need? Do they want education? Do they need that space to collaborate and talk about the changes that are coming up? We've had Google Hangout calls where people just want to talk about what they're going through personally and the changes that they're facing. And it's kind of, we're all in this together. So it's a safe space to be able to talk. We all understand what it's like to have everything change overnight. And also, where are we going to go with this in the future? So that's kind of where it's at right now. And we're growing with the group as we go along and letting it just kind of, I think, like the meetings industry at this point, watching it unfold and see where we're going to end up in another couple of years.
Yes. Oh, that's excellent. And I really appreciate that you're doing this. It's really helped us as a member of the community get to know the event professionals and what's happening, and see the concerns and help be part of that conversation. So I really hope that more will join and that we'll be able to keep moving forward together.
Thank you for saying that. That's good to know that it's helping. And yeah, I hope it continues to grow for as long as it needs to be there to support the community.
Christine, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. We're very happy to be a part of your community, and we're happy that you were able to join us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
We are so excited that Christine Mack joined us today, and we want to wish her well. And next we have some industry news for you all.
Something great that's really been happening in the industry is that we've got all of these certification programs opening up. And a great one that's really been implemented has been through the Event Leadership Institute and MPI. And it's called Virtual Event and Meeting Management Certificate Program. And the registration's actually open June 15, 2020. That is a great program where you can learn more about virtual events, and you can actually get a certificate from these noted meeting industries. So that is very exciting. That really brings me to the second one I have here. This one is called Emergency Preparedness for Events Certificate Program. And that one's also open in June 25th, 2020. So those are two really exciting certificate programs. And if you'd like more info, we'll put the links in the show notes. Another great development, a firm, a tech firm in Orlando, I could say a sister company since we're also a tech firm in Orlando. And something that they've created is called Smart Software for Body Temperature, PPE Detection, and Coughing Recognition. And so it's created for the event industry. So we're thinking about going into hybrid events next, right? So that's like our next.
Did you say coughing recognition?
Yep.
What?
How does this work?
So the name of this firm is called Code Firm, and they are here in Orlando, and they are currently working on this platform for body temperature detection, PPE detection, and coughing recognition that will be available for the event industry. So I have a question, say someone comes to the registration desk, right? So you're thinking of a big event, 1,000 people or so. Someone comes to the registration desk, you want to make sure that the person isn't infected with COVID, right, before they come up. So this will just be some type of detection software or really something to kind of give us the ability to see, okay, this person, their temperature is right. And so that's very helpful for our new hybrid events that are coming up in 6 to 7 months.
That's crazy. That's some crazy stuff.
I'm going to have to look this one up.
Somebody sent it to me. He works for another tech company, and he sent it to me. They're going to try it out at a conference coming up.
And we'll put the link in the show notes so everyone else who's curious like us can check it out. It sounds cool and innovative, but I'm very, very, I don't know, it sounds very science fiction. I'm interested.
There was like another conference or something that was, they were going with the software that had facial recognition scanning. So it would just like, apparently you would just walk through a door, it would scan your face like, oh, thank you for coming to session 1, John Smith. It's like, no way.
Here, let me send it to you guys.
FAE Vision.
Wow. All right.
Okay, so now I'd like to move to our events. The first one is called the Pivot Virtual Summit, and it's being led by an industry leader. Her name's Liz King. It's happening to the 12th. And what it is, it's 30 or more industry leaders, really thought leaders, talking about the event industry as we know it today and what they really envision for the future. So that's called the Pivot Virtual Summit. And again, it's happening June 1st to the 12th. I read that it's going to be free if you access it live. However, the recorded sessions are going to be for $49.
That sounds actually really valuable.
Awesome. And a great, we've been trying to network with our virtual happy hours, but this one is actually an event professional book club that's been put together. This is really a great way to connect with other event planners in a virtual environment and talk about the book.
Well, that sounds really neat.
Yep.
That's really exciting. I love seeing that they're starting to put more of these events together so that we can move forward and have some really innovative and great ideas as we approach the future, the unknown future.
I agree with that, especially the creativity.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the C3 podcast, Conferences, Conventions, and Continuing Education, presented by Engineerica Systems. We're really excited for our upcoming episodes. We're going to be talking more about engaging your audience. What are some other topics we're going to be talking about, guys?
Yeah, how to promote your sponsors online as well.
Digital trade shows.
Awesome. So there's a few things there, and we hope you'll join us again. Be sure to subscribe, share, and review this podcast if you want more. And if you want to learn more about Conference Tracker, please reach out to us at c3podcast@engineerica.com. We'll leave that email address in the show notes as well. And from all of us here at Engineerica and the Conference Tracker team, we want to wish you safety, and
we'll be back next time with another edition of C3.